All right. Good morning, everyone. All righty. Welcome to NAB again. It's been a long year. We've been working on a lot of technology. So I'll get into it because we've got a bit of quite a lot to show. So the big thing we've been working on over the last year is a big generation jump in technology. We felt like a lot of our customers are getting bigger, and they started quite small, but they're getting really large. I mean, really quite big companies. So they were struggling to do some of the larger work they're doing. So we felt like what we needed to do was follow through with a huge technology jump, which we've done, and part of that is also 8K. But there's a lot of other technologies and features with that. So the first product that I'll show is the new HyperDeck Extreme 8K HDR. So what we did is, there's a couple of reasons we built this product, but the big one obviously is going to 8K was a big thing. But we wanted a touchscreen HyperDeck, and the HyperDeck studio models we have now are only one rack unit. So they're nice and small, and that's really good, but they don't give you a lot of space to really do a lot of control panel based stuff. So there's a few things we wanted to do. One, obviously we wanted to have a really high-end recorder we could do 8K on, but we wanted a nice big touchscreen based HyperDeck. But at the same time, we could add traditional broadcast controls to it. Because the other thing we wanted to do is we wanted to do archiving. And I feel like the archiving systems services have taken over around the world, but they're really not tapping into all this historical content that each country has. And each country's got its own culture. So we felt like we just needed to go a bit further and allow each country to kind of pull back its archive and get it easily into modern file-based format. And that would give you the ability to get everyone's local culture onto these streaming services. So the control panel here, if you notice, it's very laid out, very similar to a broadcast deck, because we actually can control broadcast decks for this. So I'll go through some of the features, because there is other technology jumps in this product as well. That's the unit itself, so it comes as a separate HyperDeck and controller. You can see down here we've got the two HyperDecks in one rack, or you can mount them with the controller. Having a bit of a problem here. You can see obviously it's 8K, so it does extremely high resolution, and it does all the way from SD all the way up through to 8K. I'm having a real problem with look, there we go. Now, the other thing we've been doing with the HyperDeck is we're using H.265 in 8K, and as you can tell, it's giving us some extremely low data rates. So we've got the ability to, what we wanted to do is record 8K onto a file format that didn't take up a lot of space, so 8K became cheaper in some ways than doing Ultra HD. So that was one of the things that it can do. So we're recording real time. That's actually all H.265 files playing there into the switcher. You can see it's a touchscreen interface. We've got some dedicated buttons down the left-hand side. And you can see we've also got a headphone socket on the front. And we've got the controller. When you add the controller, you're basically now adding the traditional broadcast controls. And if you look at it, this jog knob here is it's got an electronic clutch in it. So you can hear it clicking, and then when you hit jog, it moves freely, and then we've got position. You don't really need vari speed on a modern device, so we've got vari speed, so we can move up and down the timeline really quickly. That jog knob is really high quality, so it's got a nice, I just showed the electronic clutch and everything, and all these buttons are all broadcast style buttons. So the aesthetic is very common to what broadcast decks were like, in the 90s. And a lot of the controls are really designed to give you control over a broadcast deck because it's RS422. I'll get this to click. So if you look at the back panel, you can see we've got quad link 12G SDI in and out. We've got a whole bunch of analog on it for the archiving. So we've got 4 channels of balanced audio. You could use Betacam SP. We've got timecode inputs, so you can record timecode from older decks as well. But there's also component composite and even hi-fi in, so you can bring content pretty much off anything that's old. Obviously we've got HDMI in it as well, and you can see there's also an external disk connection and Ethernet. Now, what this lets you do is you can put in and out points on the front panel. You can change between the player and recorder, put in and out points on there, and it'll go off and do a capture from the deck, so then whoever's doing this can just leave that unit to do that. So you could put one of these devices under each one of the old decks and just go run through them all, and one operator can run up and down all the different decks and keep them all recording. And if you put a Teranex Express in between the line, from between the older broadcast composite deck and this, you can even upconvert to a different frame rate, like say progressive 24 HD. It'll edit across the frame rates as well, so it'll do all that. It uses CFast cards, so it does the same thing the other HyperDecks do. It records from one CFast card to the other as they fill up. You can just keep changing the cards out. But what it also does, and you noticed on the back shot there was an external disk connection. We've got a new MultiDock, but you can plug an external drive in, and you can then record to the disk externally. So it handles the internal CFast cards as well as the external ones. And in this case, you've got the ability to get SSDs in the MultiDock, so it can record to those. You can interchange between the HyperDeck Studio range we have and the HyperDeck Extreme. And also on the front panel, there's a third media button. When you push it, you can manage all the media. So you can decide which disk on the MultiDock you want. So you can have the 2 disks internally, as well as the 4 disks externally. Now the other interesting thing about this, it's got a cache. So it uses one of those PCI Express hard disks, or flash drive disks that modern laptops have. And if the user puts that in, they just open a plate up on the bottom. If they put that in, then if the media fills up or if the media isn't fast enough, it'll record to the cache. And so it becomes even more foolproof. And what's interesting, like we recorded 8K to a mechanical hard disk because the cache just took the data, and when we stopped recording, it just kept dumping it out to a mechanical USB hard disk. It gives it basically much more fault tolerance, which is what you need because these are used in live production. So you want to make sure that it keeps recording, even if the media has a problem. It's got built-in scopes. So in the scope menu up here, you can bring up various scopes. And as you can see in the picture, we've got waveform, parade, histogram, and vector. And also, when you run HDR modes, the gradical will change to HDR scopes. And you can see that you can, it's a great combination to use it on, it's a great field recorder with, as you can see, we're using it here. I mean, it really is quite flexible. Because it's small enough to use portably, particularly, I've got one rack mounted here, but if you had it separate, I thought it had a different photo there, but that's that one. And the other good thing about it is it's 10G Ethernet. So again, it's another one of the technology jumps. So if you're using it for digital signage, you could have it hidden up the back. We uploaded a 5-minute 8K file, and it took 5 seconds. And we just uploaded it through FTP. As you can see, the FTP transfer is about 400 megabytes a second. But that's because of the CFast card speed limitation. It actually does much higher than that through the Ethernet, so it's very, very quick. We've got different languages in it. We've got all the main languages that we cover. I won't go through them all, but you can just select that on a menu on the front, and the whole device changes over to different languages as well. So it'll be $4,995 for the HyperDeck Extreme, and it'll be available in June. We've got a bit more QA to do. We didn't quite get it done for the show. And the controller will ship at the same time for $1,295. And as I talked about, we've got the new Blackmagic MultiDock 10G. That's a USB-C version of the MultiDock. Now, what's nice about this is it's got 2 channels on it. So you can have all 4 discs on one channel, or you can have 2 discs on one channel and 2 discs on the other channel. So if you mount it above the HyperDeck, you can have 2 channels, 2 discs on this HyperDeck, and then 2 discs on that HyperDeck. So that's how you can get the interchange between other HyperDecks, just by adding SSD capability if you want. And then you can see it there, mounted above the HyperDeck. So it matches quite nicely. That's why the new ones are the same color as the one below. That'll be the same price as the old one, which is the Thunderbolt 2 version, I think, which is $595. Now, to match the whole 8K workflow, we built an 8K switcher. In fact, we actually didn't really build an 8K switcher. What we did is we built a switcher that was so big that we could combine all the features together to make it do 8K. So we felt like if we just, we needed to build a bigger switcher. All of our customers needed a bigger switcher. So we felt, like 40 inputs is pretty good, and it's got 24 12G outputs. Each input's got a standards converter. It's got 4 DVEs. We felt like if we just went a little bit bigger and we had 4 of everything, then we could combine it all together and have 1 of everything in Ultra HD, in 8K, sorry. So it's got 4 Ultra HD DVEs. It's got 16 advanced keys, which is, the advanced chroma keys. It's got 4 separate multi-viewers, Ultra HD multi-viewers. It's 4ME, obviously. But when you make it run in 8K, when you switch to 8K, now it's a 1ME switcher with 1 8K DVE, 4 8K upstream keys, 1 8K multi-view, and that's an 8K multi-view. So what you're seeing there is a 8K output, and so that switch is running in 8K. So it's extremely powerful. Really good for big jobs. Obviously 40 inputs is huge, and there's 24 outputs. So when that goes to 8K, you get now 6 to 8K outputs. And there's a lot more sources inside the switcher now that can come out, so they're more powerful than what the aux outputs used to be. You can see the design it's a new design. We designed it a little bit to allow to TV studio customers to come up, because a lot of the big customers have said that they actually started out with their original TV studio switcher. So a lot of the design aesthetic is sort of somewhat similar. You can see on the control panel on the front. Now on a big switcher like this, most people would be like, I'll never operate that from the front of the switcher. But if you're setting up or you've got some emergency happening, it's nice to be able to walk up to the front of the switcher and be able to operate it. So we still actually retain the control panel on the front, and it's somewhat similar to the way the TV studio panel operates. So if someone came up into it, they'd understand it. You can see the back panel there, so you've got all those inputs on the left-hand side and the outputs on the right, the 24 out. You can see the multi-view on the very right-hand side, and then there's some analog. But on the left-hand side, what's interesting is we've got 2 MADI out, which means all 30 inputs, 4 channels off all 30 inputs, the first 30 inputs coming out, actually bus out. So if you wanted to get an audio mixing guy to take all the audio from you, you can actually provide all your audio to him. But there's a MADI input as well. This has got a 156 channel audio mixer built in. So we can actually have a separate MADI input which will feed the extra audio in. So you can actually expand out and actually do all the audio mixing inside it as well. So you can see we've got the 4 multi-views there. There's 4 Ultra HD multi-views. And the multi-views now do up to 16. So I've got the standard configuration that ATEM uses, but each quadrant can actually have 4. So you can have up to 16 views on each multi-view. And the multi-view sources can even be outputs inside the switcher as well as sources coming in. So you can have almost anything coming up in the multi-view. We've got the DVE, as I mentioned. There's a DVE in there, and also there's 2 super source. So when you're running an Ultra HD, you get 2 super source. When you're running 8K, you still get 1 super source with 4 8K DVEs in that. So you've kind of got 5 DVEs when you're running an 8K in some ways. And you can see there's another good shot of the multi-views and the control panels. So you can use it with a bigger panel. Now the talkback is a little similar to what we do traditionally, but it's a 4-pin headset on the front, and we actually have 2 talkback loops, one for engineering, one for program. And it also is compatible. There's a connector on the back to connect to ClearCom and the other talkback systems. So it does integrate into traditional talkback systems, as well as the way we do it, which we just put it down the unused audio channels for SDI. So they both work together. In fact, it all sort of integrates. In fact, we're using both here. So some of the guys on the floor have the standard talkback system, and we're using a Constellation, ATEM Constellation switcher for this, for the stream we're doing. Now the other interesting thing, because it's got such a giant audio mixer, 156 channel fair load audio mixer, and every input has dynamics, like compressor, limiter, noise gate, expander, but it's also got 6-band parametric EQ. We have done some extra software to allow the Fairlight console to control the audio mixer in the switcher. So you can see the picture there. That's I'm not sure what size that console is, but if you build out the console, if you had 2 5-bay consoles fully populated, it's still not enough faders to actually control the audio mixer that's inside that switcher. It's so big. And the talkback mic and the analog input and the media plays all go into that audio mixer as well. So it's really big. It's the biggest audio mix that's ever been in anything. It's a great thing about owning and being part of an audio company is the guys all like, we're really gung-ho about doing this, and it's become a little bit over the top, but it's really exciting. So it's pretty cool. So for the Fairlight console now, you can sell it to, like we can sell it with DaVinci systems or now the ATEM systems as well. We've obviously got the software control panel, which gets a bit unwieldy when you've got such a big switcher. We've got hardware panels and current control panels and all the other panels. They all work with this switcher as well. So it's actually available now, and it's $9995, which is a monster of a switcher for that. It's like amazing, really, when you think about it. So to do monitoring, we needed to do a new Teranex Mini SDI to HDMI 8K, but it's a little bit more than what we've traditionally done before. It's not just a simple converter. You notice the design, it's a bit different. It's basically half rack width, and we have these Teranex Mini converters where you can bolt on a little small panel with a screen and everything. On these half rack width ones, the screens come built in by default. But when you look at the back of it, you see it's got a quad link in, and it's also got quad out, which is the way the TVs currently are. You can see I've got one here, and that's the way they currently are. And it'll take interleaved or tiled inputs and convert that depending on what the television needs. And you can also run a HD or Ultra HD television, it'll down convert. But what gets really exciting is we've got scopes built into it. So we can put 2 on-screen scopes, and they're independent of each other, so you can select which scope it is, and you can blend them over the top of the background. And that's pretty nice if you're running, say, color grading. If you're using this with a Decklink 8K Pro, say with DaVinci, it's a really nice monitoring solution to have the scopes built in there. Because if you're running 8K on a computer doing DaVinci, you really want all the processing power to be using for color grading and color nodes. So having the scopes offloaded, although it turns out, of course, DaVinci's got new scopes that are GPU accelerated. So we kind of did this at exactly the wrong time, but it is nice to just offload everything and have the external converter doing that work for you. That way the computer's doing all its work for processing. And you can see we've also got monitor calibration built in. So if there's a couple of different probes you can buy, third-party just off-the-shelf probes. The information's on our website, but if you plug it into the front, this converter is actually running Blackmagic OS, which is the original OS that we developed for the cameras, but it's now running in everything. And it now takes charge of the probe, and it'll bring up some test signals. You can see there's a test signal that's being shown there, and you can set the monitor contrast and brightness, then it'll run through. It'll build a 3D lookup table. It's got a 33-point 3D lookup tables in it. It'll build that lookup table based on calibrating the monitor, and then you can actually save that lookup table out and load it into other monitors if you want. So you can actually get access to that lookup table. It's not like secret, hidden calibration. It's just using a 3D LUT, which means you can grab it and pass them around. Or someone could give you a LUT if they needed to, and for a specific brand monitor, that'd be fine. So there's also a rack mount kit. The same rack mount kit for Teranex Minis works with these. It's got a slightly different plate, so you can fill in the gap, but the same rack mounting kit works for Teranex Minis. And you see, as I mentioned, it's a fantastic solution for monitoring when you're using DaVinci Resolve and you need a color-accurate color grading monitor. It's got the calibration, the lookup tables, the scopes, all that built in, so it really is a good solution for that. So that'll be available in a month or so. We've got a bit more QA to do on it, 1295 for that. So now we want to get to DaVinci Resolve, which is the next big thing we're doing. So DaVinci Resolve, it's a bit of an interesting. I mean, obviously, you've seen the banner on the hall saying a revolution in editing, and we've been looking at editing as a process. About a year ago, I was looking at some training videos that people were doing, and the trainer was showing how they were getting clips in the bin, and they were putting labeling them and naming them, all sort of stuff. I'm thinking, that's not the way people used to edit. When I was working in post-production, mostly TV commercials, a bit of programming work, that's not the way editors used to do it. They used to throw everything in the timeline and chop all the stuff out they didn't want, and that was just the way they did it. So I kind of just had this feeling that editing software had evolved over time in a very sort of similar way, and everyone did it the same way. So in some ways it was very capable, but I didn't feel like it was fast. It was sort of almost in some ways slowing down. The more capability, the more keyframes and all these other things you could do in there. It just sort of felt like there was a speed limit. And I looked at it from a manufacturing point of view, and we do manufacturing quite well. And so there's principles in that. I mean, manufacturing has a real bad reputation in pop culture because it's like, oh, what a Joe job. But manufacturing, modern good manufacturing, everyone works together to try and eliminate waste. And waste is anything you do that doesn't result in any purpose, like it's not productive. So every movement, everything you do that isn't productive is actually considered waste. And what you do is you hunt down waste and bottlenecks and other things, but you hunt down waste and eliminate it. So that way the work that people do is productive and you don't find you're just wasting half your time. And if you look at editing, when you watch someone actually edit, all I see is waste. I see clicking and scrolling and all these things that thousands of clips in a bin, they've got to move around everywhere. It looks really wasteful. So I thought, what happens if we applied that culture to editing? Well, the problem is the edit page is a certain culture. It's about capability. It's got everything in it that people need. It's a lot of stuff that everyone's on. We're good boys in the edit page, right? We put everything everyone wants. There's a whole lot of more stuff in the edit page when you see it, but how did we make it fast? So I thought what we need is a new page. So we have a new page called the cut page, and it's been specifically designed for speed. So while we've got capability in the edit page, the cut page is all about speed. The great thing is that we can do this because DaVinci has separate pages. Then they're different cultures. Like you've got a colorist who uses the color page. Doesn't care about the audio page, but an audio engineer uses the audio page. And then the whole thing collaborates because the same software collaborates against each other. So what that means is that you're not stuck being just an editor because you could become a bit of a colorist if you want. And people drift between the pages as they find they like something. They might dabble in it and then drift in, and that's nice. It means there's no shells or any that define you as a demographic and you've just got to be an editor and that's who you are. Where DaVinci can drift around a bit. The problem is there's almost two cultures in editing. There's one culture that wants to go faster, and there's another culture that kind of, you're doing long form work and you've got to get it perfectly right and you want a huge amount of finessing and capability. So the cut page is all about speed, and the main rule of the cut page is everything has to do something. Everything has to be an action, so there's no waste, or you eliminate waste. Also, the cut page has to be intelligent, and you don't have to tell it every single thing. It's trying to work out, oh, I know what you want. Okay, I'll do that for you. You've always got undo, so that's okay. And the other thing the cut page needs to have is the controls need to be obvious. So they need to be there, so you can just click on it. You don't have to go through a sub-menu, Everything has to be immediate. So that was kind of the culture for the cut page. So what I'll do is I'll pop over here and show you. I'm not a demo guy, so I'm probably going to make it all go horribly wrong, but I'll come over and I'll show you how it works. So I'm on the cut page at the moment, as you can see. If we can bring the cut page up on the screens. It's people can see, there it is. So you can see it's quite different. If I go to the edit page, you can see there's a lot more on here. If I go to the cut page, it's a bit simpler. Now on the top left here is the bin, and I can click, and I've still got titles and transitions and effects. But I've also got some buttons. I don't need, it's designed to work on a smaller monitor. I don't actually have to go, I could actually do everything on the one page, because if often people that are cutting are doing it on set, they're doing a TV commercial, they actually want to do a quick cut on set and see how it looks. And so they're really actually doing it in small laptops and things. So we wanted a page that was able to handle that. So a lot of things were done in here too, eliminate wasted space. So I can bring in the media directly from here. And if I go to desktop, there's my clips. I've got them in here, and it'll bring the folder structure in, but I can bring in clips in here. And as I move up and down, I can click and go between just with this menu. So I don't have that tab panel down the left-hand side, so I'm not wasting space. Also, I'll create a timeline to make sure I can do something. Now, if I go into the folder here, you can see there's a bit of a path here. Now, I can see my clips here, and I can open them up. But I can also see list view, and but there is new tools in here, and I've got a new clip view as well. So I can see icon view, clip view. I've got a bunch of clips here. These are actually the clips that are running on the HyperDeck, so they're all the same length, and I think there's about an hour of footage total here. So I'm not really using probably the right clips for what I'm going to show, but so there I go there. So once you've got these clips, I can drag them all down into the timeline here, and you notice there's a dual timeline. Now, this is one of the problems that we had. We've got these contextual tools, and when you move around the edit point, the tools change, and it's really nice. The problem is you've got to zoom in to a certain level to be able to get enough control to do it, and then you want to see where you are, so you've got to zoom back out again and see, oh, okay, now I know where I am. Well, in this, you've got both at once. So what it means, I've got a full timeline. This is the full edit at the top, and at the bottom I have a zoomed in portion of it that I can do my work. And they totally work. Like if you move a clip down, you can see it moves around. It just changes between, and I can pop things down in the gaps, add a clip. I can even trim in here. This is a real, because the clips are end to end, but you can trim in here. This is a real live timeline. It's not just a fancy looking scroll bar. It actually does things. I can move a clip down here. If I go down here, I can move this clip up here, drag it all the way down, and drop it down the end of the edit, and there it is there. I can go in and trim, but I can also trim, obviously, in here. Here's my edit point here. So you can see how you can move things around, and also I've got trimming. So what I'll do is I'll delete everything out of here and show you how the trimming works. So I've got a multi-cam shoot here, so let me go to a wide shot. Here it is here. So you can see that the scroll bar looks quite different. And again, it's another thing to try and improve the speed and efficiency. So you can scroll up and down the scroll bar, and you've got all the audio there, but you've also got the in and out points marked in here. So you can click an in point and drag it down, and you can see the audio. But also I can scratch trim. See, looks like on this build now the audio is not showing, whereas it was showing 10 minutes ago. So that's the problem with a beta build. What should happen when I'm scratching, you should actually see a zoomed in version of the audio waveform, so you can mark your endpoint against the audio track. So the great thing about having the audio in here is it's drawing the audio as you're trimming. So I've got absolute trimming by just moving the in and out buttons, and I can still use trim in and out, like in and out points. The problem is if you've got a really long clip, is it's each pixel's like dozens of frames of movement. So to get really accurate trimming, I mean, you can throw everything in the timeline and chop out the stuff you don't want, as you could see. But what about the other way of actually getting the bits you want and dropping down into the timeline? And that's also really important, and that's a bit rough. It's very hard. NLEs don't do that well, because you need accurate trimming in the viewer here to be able to do that. And that's where the scratch trimming, if I have this scratch trimming, see, I can scratch. Doesn't matter how long the clip is, that's moving the same amount. It's a shame that the audio is not drawing. So I can get that in and out point just right. And I can scratch. And that's a Rouse relative thing, so it's not actually on there. So there you can see, because I've got a track there now. I can drop that into the timeline, and that's my base edit.
Pretty much put.
So you can see I can do some quite good trimming up in the viewer now, and then put the clips down. Now I could, put another clip in there. I mean, a good example is if I want to. Well, let's pretend these are actually an edit where I've edited a bunch of, like I've shot a bunch of stuff over time. These are really different camera views of the same edit, but I can go along here and mark. Well, I'll move down. So I can do in, out, and I'll append to end. So you can see that it doesn't switch to the timeline every time I do an edit, so I can just basically keep dropping shots down. So I can move along here until I see something interesting and drop it down. And it's much faster because it's almost like throwing rocks off a bridge. You know, you just keep throwing the shots down into the timeline. I mean, edit software on the edit page, it'll switch to the timeline when you finish an edit so you can preview it. But if you want to go fast, what you want to do is just scroll down and look for stuff that's interesting, just go drop, 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 and it's done. I mean, if you know, this is obviously mainly designed for TV commercial editors and high-end editors like that, but if you look at it, the guys are doing news work now. They're actually making programming out of the news work. They need to cut quickly. Even the high-end YouTube guys, I mean, you've got the YouTube guys, right? They're pumping out 3 or 4 15-minute programs a day from a hotel room, and they've shot it themselves and, you know, presented to it. They've got extremely tough editing deadlines. I think this is why we need to come up with a whole new way of editing. No one's got the time. People just don't have the time to spend hours on this anymore. So there's a couple of more powerful things. If I want to talk about the intelligence of some of these things, if I'm at the edit point here, and I see I'm not actually on the edit point, and if I mark a clip in and out here, and I basically insert that, I've got a smart insert. When I insert that, it'll know that this is the edit point that I want to go into, and it'll just put it in there for me. So it's not going to wait for me to do that. So you can see this is the kind of stuff that, that it can do. So let me show you the next set of features. I'll select all. Now I'll go back to that wide shot. Where is that? It's here. Let me drop that in. So what we've also done is, the great thing about this multi-camera job is I've got a whole bunch of cutaways. So let's go to this cutaway here. One of the things we wanted to deal with is the problem with multicam. It's really powerful, but if you've got a 40-minute job, you've got to basically wait 40 minutes for it. Not only that, when you see something, because it's kind of like switching, you sometimes want to get in before some action happens, but with multicam, again, you're kind of lagging behind the action. So what we want to do is a way of building up multicams without needing the time taken to watch the program through. So what I have here is I've done the base track, which is the wide shot, and I've ended the front and the back off it. And now I can go along and look at one of the other camera views, and I can look along there and find any shots that I like. So let me just find a shot. Well, here's a bit here where she's doing the chili. And I go down here. So there's a shot of her cutting some chili. Now all I have to do is hit the source overwrite button. And what that'll do is it'll add the clip on top and match frame it to the clip in the timeline, and it created the cutaway for me. So now when she starts cutting,
They look amazing.
see she's cutting the chili and it's just on the cutaway. So the nice thing about that is if I go back to the clip, I can pretty much just go down and look for anything that's interesting, like that. I can mark an in and out point on it, and I can just do source override. I can just keep going down looking for anything interesting. There's something. That looks nice. Source override. Where else have we got? Anything interesting? Oh, there's something. So she's doing something there. In point, I might scratch the in point a bit to see if I can get it there. And the out point. And then, whoops, I lost my in point. I screwed that up. Undo. There it is. And then source override. So I can just keep dropping all the cutaways in. Then I can go to the next view and I can drop a bunch of cutaways from that and then do it again and layer them up. I've also got another feature in here. Say if you want a nice close-up there, I can go to the same shot and then match frame it, do an in, and I'll put a little bit of duration on it. I'll just go down a little bit and out. And I can do a close-up. Now what this does is lets me do a close-up of the same shot. And if I use the tools here, I've got a bunch of tools here for position, cropping, stabilization, all those tools are in there. Well, I can now move that shot in a little bit and zoom it slightly. And I've got a now a close-up.
I've reserved some of the prawn heads over here. I'm going to pop them into a hot pan, and then...
And I've got, so this lets me go and shoot with a single camera and just go along and just go drop. I could have shown you on the timeline by putting in and out points, but there's actually a bug in that, so I shouldn't have even mentioned that. But you can match frame. I match frame to the clip and then just drop them from the clip, because it actually works in a very similar way to how the source override does. It's trying to be intelligent. It's trying to do stuff, extra stuff for you. So unless you put an in and out point in, and then it goes, okay, what you're trying to do isn't what I want. You can do that, but the whole idea is to try and make it intelligent, so it does things fast for you. Now that's all nice. The problem is, again, we looked at the situation of editing, and the thing that really frustrates us is the bin. I mean, we've got all these clips, it's all chopped up, and that's the way stuff. You could have hundreds or thousands of clips. In linear editing, we didn't have to worry about that. In linear editing, we had a, that's nice. In linear editing, we had a tape, and we could basically had all our shots on a tape. She didn't have to do that once again, did she? But so in linear editing, we lost that when we went to non-linear editing. And the thing about non-linear editing, the reason it was great is because it was instant. When you did an edit, it was instantaneous. With mechanical editing, you had to have multiple decks, and it was all slow because of the machines were slow. But we actually lost some stuff. What we lost was the fact that all our clips were on one tape. So what we've done is we've got a button called source tape, and when you click on it, it takes everything in your bin and puts it in one long list, one long bar. And now I can scroll up and down all my shots. And if I can go into the bin order and change the view, so I can change the sort order, and it'll rebuild the source tape for me. And I can go along here, so I can, say if I want to build an edit up, and this is good, this is multiple camera views of the same stuff, but say I wanted to do, I'd shot someone rebuilding a motorbike engine, and I've been shooting it all day, and they're finished, and I could have hundreds of shots as they were doing different bits. What I'll do is I'll delete everything. Oops. And you could do a source tape, and I can just go along here and say, okay, I want this bit, that bit, and add it. I want that bit, I want that bit, add it. And I'm just going along all my media here and just, I want that. And I just sort by timecode order. So I want that, and I just basically go along and find all the shots that I like. And again, because it's a source tape, this is where the scratch trimming is really important, because I can't get the shots quite accurately lined in and out points because it's over an hour of media. If I go down here, you can see there's literally an hour of media here. So, and that could get really built up because it gets everything in the bin and puts it in there. So what you can do is, this is where the scratch trimming is really good, because I can find exactly the spot I want. And then I can get that in there and I can drop it down in using that. So you can see how I can just build up a timeline of pieces. So it's very, very fast using that. And again, if I go to an edit point, I can now trim around the bottom here because I've got all the direct trimming, all the tools are here. I've got the, I can trim in, trim out. One thing I've also got, on the edit page, you've got to change tools if you want to slip. You don't have to do that in here. If I scroll over here, I've got this little slip tool, and I can slip directly in here. I can also move the edit points backwards and forwards. And while I'm doing that, I can also do it here. Move that out of the way. There's that. See, I'm able to do that here. And I can also do it up here. If you want really frame accurate trimming, then we actually have 3 simultaneous trim editors all live at the same time. And I can move up here and I can do the trimming here as well. And you get a frame count as you're moving it around. And I can trim there. You can see I've got all that control. And no matter where I'm trimming, it works. And I can even nudge. But you can see how fast the source tape lets me just throw down shots and just assemble something really fast. So you don't have to sort of throw everything in timeline and chop it all up. The source tape lets you do it. And as I'm scrolling the source tape, it remembers where it is. You can move along, and it actually highlights the clips as I'm scrolling along. So you can see I've got that there. It's highlighting clips for me as I'm going. So you can see there's a lot of tools here. And also the other thing is, if I want to do some transitions, I can just click and I put a dissolve in, or I click and turn it off. There's this transition switching here. So I can turn off things on and off. And there's also a smooth cut transition here as well. So if you're doing an interview and you've got a bunch of jump cuts, because you're presenting and you've had to chop a bit out, the smooth cuts in here, so you can just apply that and it actually blends out. These are dissimilar shots, so it looks wacky, but that might be cool if you want to do something crazy. And again, you can change all these durations here. So you've got all of, and you can see this will always fit the transition in here, so it'll multiply up the number of frames, but the adjustments are always frame accurate when you're adjusting. So you can see how powerful this can be. And I think it's really fast, and there's a bunch of more edit point modes and things in there. And then when you want to deliver, all the pages in DaVinci now have a delivery window, so you don't have to go to the deliver page, and you can upload to YouTube directly from the account. If you've got your account data, you can render out and directly upload, or it'll render out. So that's nice, but we felt we could go a little bit further. I mean, as you can see, it's a bit like another edit culture, but then we thought there's kind of another edit culture that people haven't seen for a long time, and it's linear editing directly. And in linear editing, we used to have a keyboard. So if we can switch back to the slides on the screens. So we've developed a keyboard for DaVinci Resolve. So this is really funny. It's all metal. It uses key switches from esports keyboards. It's got a beautiful controller on it with clutch. It's USB. But what it lets you do is it lets you operate the editor from, like, when you're using a mouse, it's like you're only using one hand. But you can use both hands. You can have the left hand doing all the selection of edits. The right hand can be doing the clip location. So it's actually even faster again. It's almost like we joke and call it the third edit page, but it's a mechanical device. So we've got the standard QWERTY keyboard, but there is some enhancements that we've added. So it's almost DaVinci's traditional keyboard with just a few tweaks on it. And then we have the right-hand side. You can see there's a beautiful search dial. And then you've got, above that, you've got three search modes. Then above that, you've got the source tape and the timeline, so you can switch between the two. The source tape becomes really important from the keyboard. In fact, I thought of the idea from the keyboard thinking, and then we realized that it's great in the UI. Oh, by the way, there's on the right-hand side, there's also a timecode entry keypad. So we've got cool things like frame, timecode, switching, so you can type things in frame count versus timecode. A double zero button, so you don't have to type in 000, so that's great. Even all the key switches are rated for over 1 million hits. The clutch, it's funny, if you run the keyboard from USB 3.1, there's not actually enough power to run the clutch in the search dial. So we have a bunch of super caps in the keyboard that charge up to let you run the clutch even if you're running a lower USB. But most things are USB-C these days. On the left-hand side is where you do all the transition control. So you can see how there's similarities with the transitions on the cut page and here. Because on a keyboard, you don't want to have to do 3-point editing to do a 3-point edit. You want to be able to put the in and out point on the source clip, but you don't want to have to go to the timeline and put another in point. That's slow. So that's why you've got Smart Insert. It goes, oh, that's the edit point you want. I think that's where you want it. I'll put it in there. And same thing, with append to end, well, that's easy. But the source override and some of these other functions close up, you just, you run up and down the timeline and add them. That's why, if they can be intelligent, you can operate just again a bit faster. It's all about efficiency. We just keep measuring how long it takes to do things. How can you eliminate stuff you don't need to do? There's a nice big in and out button. There's some trim controls, and then below that is the transition switching. So what I'll do, and there's one there that we're seeing, it's on the front of a desk. Looks fantastic with an iMac Pro. It's this, just really fits together well. And it's got a lip around it, so you can actually inset it in the desk. So you can see you can have it perfectly flat in a desk, because you can actually inset it. So I've got one under here, so I'll plug one in. I'll make some space for myself. And I'll show you quickly before we've, then I've got one more thing after this, but, so here's the keyboard. So these are prototypes, but you can see the color palette of the keys has been set up to be much more modern feeling. There's the search dial there. You can operate with your right hand on this side and your left hand on this side. So it's all metal, and it's going to be very repairable. We want to have, this has actually got a metal bumper on the front. The real one will actually be rubberized. We want to be able to replace that. Same with keycap sets. This is designed to be long-term. People use it 12 hours a day, so we've also thought about repairability with it. Replacement key switches, keycap sets, all these sorts of parts we'll have available. But I'll plug it in and I'll show you quickly. It's a bit hard for you to see down there, but I'll show you how it works. So I've plugged it in, and what happened is the jog button came up. So now when I jog, so we'll go back to the UI, we can see the effects of there it is there. So you can see as I'm jogging and turning the knob, I've got jog, and on the left-hand button above the search, I've got shuttle, which is all very normal. But also on the right-hand side, I've got scroll, and scroll it gives me the ability to scroll up and down the timeline instantaneously. So I can just move to any position I want, right up and down, just with a knob. And it's got dual bearings in the knob, so it spins really nicely. So even jog is actually quite fast. Sorry, the search dial, I've got to use the correct term. When you're in jog, you can spin it, and it really moves down the timeline. But scroll gives you that ability. Now I've got the timeline view or the source tape. I've got two buttons above the search dial there, and I can switch between them. And you can see I'm switching between the search dial and between the source tape and the timeline. Now I can use the scroll. See, I've got an hour of media here, and I've just got down to the end of it. So say if we want to find a shot, on the left-hand side I can just mark in and mark out. One cool thing about the source tape is if I mark in and mark out on a portion of it like that, if I push source tape again, it now restricts the source tape to the area that I just had. So I can zoom in some ways on the source tape. So I don't have to have the source tape having the entire bin. I can actually narrow it down just by marking in and out point on the source tape. I can do that in the UI, but I can do it here as well. If I push escape, it goes back to the full source tape. So let's actually do something. So I've got, we'll just, I'll go to my source tape. Let's find a shot that I want. So I can mark in there, mark out, append to end. Let's find something else. Mark in, mark out, append to end. Mark in, mark out, append to end. So let's just find shots, and as I'm just building stuff up, yeah, I like that, append to end. So you can see I can just run through and find shots, and you can really see how fast it is because both hands are operating at the same time. So this is even faster again. So it's pretty exciting, and if I push back to timeline, now I've got my timeline, I can just play whenever I want. Now if I wanted to do a trim of an edit, that's another issue that I want to be able to do. I want to be able to trim with the knob. So I've got a bunch of buttons on the bottom left-hand side called roll, and we'll have a keyboard out here after the show, you can check it out. But if I push roll in, So here's an edit point here. I'll go back to jog actually because it's getting a bit crazy. Where's my edit point? There it is. So I don't have to be exactly on it. If I push roll in, there's the in point of the destination clip. So I can do trimming right from there. If I push roll out, it's rolling the out point. If I now roll the transition point itself, and this is all modifying the behavior of the search dial. So now I've got this nice big dial just to dial these things in. And I can now also slip by pushing roll source and roll destination. I can slip the clips. And if I add a cut, down the bottom I've got the transition switching, which you saw in the UI. If I turn that on, I go to dissolve, and now I can change the length of that just by dialing it in. And then I can still move things around and do all that sort of stuff. Now what's really interesting about that, so if I go back to scrolling, if you had, say, a 30-second commercial that you did and you found it was 35 seconds, I'm thinking I've got to get a little bit off it. What am I going to do? Well, what you might do is just do a whole lot of rapid trimming. So if you push the trim editor, which is on the keypad, what it does now is it switches into trim mode in an almost forceful way, and now you're scrolling up and down the edit points. So at any point you can then go, okay, I want to trim a little bit off that. Let's go to the next edit point, trim a bit off that. Yeah, that's pretty good. Trim off a bit off here. And I can just get that duration down. And there I am, and now I'm feeling better, and then I can just come back out of that. You can also do things like go to full screen and do all your editing from here. So you've got that. So you can see there's quite a lot of power in the keyboard. The big thing is you can do both hands at the same time. So I'm going to stop talking for a moment because Mary's going to pop over. There's a lot more stuff in DaVinci, so she's going to do a really quick update, and then I'm going to have a little bit of camera news to show you. So I'll unplug my keyboard here and then let me pass over Mary.
Sounds good.
Sorry for talking too much.
Oh, please.
All right, I'll just get this down here.
Great. All right, we have a lot of exciting updates that we've added to DaVinci Resolve 16. In fact, it's such a massive update. I've got like 150 things to show in 5 minutes, so I had to kind of pare it down a little bit, just get some of the highlights for the different pages. Let me switch pages for just a moment. And we're going to leave the cut page for now. And I didn't realize how inefficient all of my editing and clicking was until I started working with the cut page, and then I realized just how much clicking I'm actually doing all the time. So this is our edit page that you're very familiar with. And what I'm going to show you is just a couple of big features that, and some things may seem really small, but if you're an editor, they can be a really big deal. For example, one of the first things is you can now create new timelines that can have custom settings within the same project. So you can change the format, you can have different frame rates and size within the same project. So that's huge. You can even change the frame rate and size within timelines that have already been made in your project, which is kind of big. So if you know what I'm talking about, it's kind of a good thing. I'm going to get out of that. Let me show you something else that's really cool. This is just, like I said, a standard timeline. I'm going to bring over an adjustment clip. This is something new. It's sort of like an adjustment layer, but it happens right here in the timeline on my edit page. And what I can do with this is I can place it over any clips. And once I do that, I can add effects to my adjustment clip, and anything below that, it will apply to whatever clips are below it. So for example, let's go down here through this awesome list of our effects. Let's go in here to our effects, and you might notice this nice list of Resolve effects that now work in the edit page as well, not just the color page. And I'm going to come down here and throw on one of our new ones, the vignette, which a few people might have asked for. So there's our vignette effect, and I'm going to go over here to the inspector. As you can see, the vignette's now been applied to all of the clips below my adjustment clip, and I can come over here to my open effects and just make any changes I want to. Also, any of these parameters I can now automate or add keyframes not only here in the inspector, but I can also do those in the keyframe editor. So that's pretty awesome. So working with the open effects or the effects right here in the edit page is pretty big, and being able to keyframe those. So that's one thing. We've also got some really deep learning. We have our new DaVinci neural engine, which is going to use some AI and some deep neural network. So it's like smart. It's AI, right? Everyone wants AI. Well, we've got that too. So, and ours is pretty smart. It's going to do all kinds of things to really make your job easier. Let me come over to some clips. One of the things we can do is we can grab a group of clips, and I can analyze those. And while I'm analyzing those, notice it'll go through and it will find the faces. So we have facial recognition. And so what that will do is it will go through, you can label your different characters, and it can actually make smart bins which will automatically populate with those characters. So as you make more scenes, as you bring in more footage, you can just analyze them. It'll automatically do that for you. So
Attention exhibitors, the show floor will officially open in 15 minutes.
Awesome.
Once again, the show floor will officially open in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it'll recognize your characters. You could just give them a name. And once you do that, it'll have a smart bin that will go with those characters. You'll see those. I'm going to open up my sidebar, and you'll see, let me hide my effects for a second, and you'll see here's my smart bins. Notice I can just move those around. Here's my different people. There's my characters, and it will show you anyone that's already been analyzed. So that's just little things like that. You can also have smart bins for all types of metadata, your scenes, any of those types of things can be created into smart bins. We even have folders for smart bins now, so you can have smart bins maybe, or at least organized, so that's kind of cool. Let's step out of here. I want to show you actually one thing in my effects library is we also have put a lot of effort into improving the performance for Fusion. It's now working much faster in real time, and in fact we can add some of our Fusion titles right here. Let me grab one and I'll just throw it at the end just to give you a touch. Let me just pick one from the list and add it to timeline, and here is a Fusion title that I can add. I can make an adjustment to it right here really quickly. Oops, if I could just spell. There you go, and there is my title. And so that's just one more thing that we can do right here, and this is just on the edit page, but there's more. Okay, let's go over to the color page for a minute, because a lot of that AI and our deep learning is going to be really put to work right here on the color page, and I know a lot of you are already familiar with what we had. Well, we've taken it up quite a bit, so let me just show you a few things that we have. For example, I'm going to switch timelines to my color timeline. As you can see, I have a bit of a grade that's already been applied to this. I'm going to go to a clip, and I'm going to show you one of our new effects. Now, this particular effect is, here's my scenario. I've got this baseball scene. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. Hold on, there it is. And as you can see, we've got this character in the background. It turns out they had a script change. It happens. And it turns out they don't want to have that character in the background anymore. We need to get rid of them. So we now have object removal. And so what we can do with that is, I will just show you. Showing is better, right? So we'll come over here, and all you have to do is come over here, set a mask. I'm going to bring this up. And as you can see, I've created a mask. I did a little bit of that ahead of time, and a little tracking, nothing complicated. And so my character has now been outlined. So anytime you add a window, you can automatically separate any of your object that you happen to draw the window over. So I've got that. Then I'm going to come over here to my, let's go over here. I'm going to show you now some of that brain power that's going on under the hood. You see this little red mark there? That's the neural engine at work, and what's happening here is it's actually looking at the pixels, it's analyzing that, it's checking out the background of the moving shot, and it's deciding which things to create a background once the characters move. So it's analyzing all of that for us so that when I turn this off, he is gone. Okay, let's look at that a little bigger, shall we? Okay, so now you see him, now you don't. Notice they're looking for him too. He disappeared, right? They're like, what? Where'd he go? So script changes, but there you go. So that is one of our really awesome effects. Again, that's our object removal. We have, you know, some of them are a little less showy, but we still have some really cool things going on. For example, same scene. Here we have a new shot. It happens where you have a shot, a pickup shot that just came in however we got it, and they dropped it in, and of course it doesn't match anything else in my timeline. I need to fix it real quick. The colorist isn't here, and someone's coming to look at the timeline in about 5 minutes. So what do I do? Well, one of the nice things we can do is we can just select this clip, and I can come down here and take advantage of a cheat, yes, but it's a really awesome one, and that is our auto balance. We have now upgraded that as well, so it's using a lot of our AI to really think that through. So if I click the auto balance, you notice that it did a fairly nice grade, for me anyway. It did a nice grade, which looks great, except it has nothing to do with the coloring that I have on the rest of my shots. So if I wanted to, ideally what I'd like to do is find another shot that I can match this to. And so let me come over here, and I'm going to make a new serial node, and I'm going to find another shot that's in the same outdoors, in the same scene, and I'm just going to select that, right-click, and I will just say shot match. And look at that, just like that. I'm close enough, right? I'm not a colorist. I'm just playing one on TV today. But as you can see, I was able to fake it well enough to get by with this particular thing. And obviously, when the colorist comes, they'll redo all of that. But again, a lot of that work, you saw I just did that. It took me 2 seconds, and it worked out pretty well for me. So let's open this up, and I'm going to show you something you may not have noticed. Check out our scopes. You know, I know everyone's got their own favorites. Here's my parade, but you notice we now have our GPU accelerated scopes. So we have, right here you can see them in real time playback for our scopes, and we also have, you know, here's our waveform. We also have the ability to go in and change all kinds of settings too. So you can go in here and you can also look at different ways that you want to analyze it, and we even have a new scope built in right here. Here's our CIE 1931XY, so if you're getting into your color depth and you need to be able to look at it at this granular level, we have that as well. So you have your standard scopes, but we also have some other stuff accelerated, built right in. So all of this is pretty exciting, right? And then there's audio. I know everyone saves audio for last, but except me. All right, so let's go over here, and I just want to show you a couple of things that we have on our Fairlight page. If I go to the edit page for just a moment, you'll see that, you know, this is just a typical shot that we might have on the edit page where we had to do some ADR. The shot wasn't good, we needed to replace the audio. And the ADR, it sounded good enough in the studio, but now that we're trying to match it up, have you ever watched bad ADR, or it's good, but it always looks off just a little bit, you could see it? Well, I can tell right here, obviously, the waveform's not quite right. So one of the things we could do now is, let me pop over to the Fairlight page, is we now have something new, and in fact, let me just take this out, and I like changing things up a bit. There we go. So we can see this really well. There's his mouth, so I can really watch his mouth movements. And as you can see, these are pretty close just by looking at them, but that first waveform's not. So we're going to use our new elastic wave right here. If I turn that on, and now I have the ability to actually stretch, change, and move around this waveform to get it to match better to the lip movement. All you need to do is command-click. You'll add your markers that you can then move around, and then I'm going to add a couple more here. This is the waveform I'm most interested in, so I'm going to stretch this out. Notice I can just stretch that out. Now, it doesn't change pitch. Obviously, if you stretch it too much, you'll hear that, but you should be able to just grab that and make a few adjustments. I'm going to try to line up those peaks. The consonant sounds there. Looks pretty good. And again, I could finesse this pretty well, but I think I've got it. And so now let's see how it sounds.
He didn't call for it.
All right, so it sounds pretty good. Now, if you wanted to hear the original, this was the original sound. Okay, which they didn't like. They wanted to replace it. And as you can see, we did a pretty good job matching the lips and fixing that up. So again, that's our elastic wave. You just right-click to turn it on, command-click to set your markers. So that's one thing. Now, we also have some huge power hit as far as elevation to our Fairlight page. And that is, we've got a lot of professional features that are now built in here that a lot of people have been asking for. It was just a matter of time. Here they are. Let me bring these up. I'm just going to glance at them because I know I'm going long here. So one of the things I know, some people, anyone here work in audio, then you know that automation is kind of a big deal. So as you can see, I have some automation applied to my timeline here. And we don't actually need to hear the sound, so let me mute that. So we have some automation applied. We can even, of course, see this. So it's just standard, your automation. There's my nice automation curve. But what we can do now is we also have, in addition to automation, is we have the ability to preview, which if I turn on preview, notice it turns blue. That gives us the opportunity to then audition different changes that we might need to make to our faders during playback so that you don't lose control of everything because you have automation engaged. So if I turn that on, as long as I have something enabled, whatever's enabled, I can then turn this on. And notice it turns blue, so then I can make different adjustments to it even though it has automation. See how I froze it up? So I have manual adjustments. I can test drive it as much as I need to against playback, and then I can always drop in the new settings. So that's really great if you do a lot of automation. That's huge. We got a couple other things really quickly. Notice I have automation applied to a lot of my buses and mains, but I can't see those, so I can't do any kind of adjustments to them other than, I can listen and I can run the faders. But now we actually have bus tracks. If you go over to your index, any of your buses, submixes, auxiliaries, mains, you can come over here and I can just turn those on. So here's a VCA group. Let me turn on my effects, and I'll turn on my main, and you notice that I can actually see, let's put up one more, I can see the automation curve now for those right there in the timeline. As you can see, there they are, so I can compare them. You can also cut, copy, and paste your automation from track to track. I can even go in here with my edit tool, and I can go in and I can actually redraw the wave, even though this is one of my buses. So I have total control of my automation, even at this level, which is pretty awesome. And that is right here on the Fairlight page. Another big one, and I'll show you this in a second. I'm going to just unveil this and bring up my meters, is we also have all new loudness meters. So anyone who, does anyone here do video? Anyone who does professional video, you know loudness is pretty much it, right? We have to be compliant with our loudness. So we have entirely rebuilt professional loudness meters now. So these are going to follow along with all of the loudness standards now. We have the most current loudness standards, and if you notice right here, you can choose the standard for your region. They're going to include your true peak now, as well as you're going to have 3 different colors that are going to show. If you do playback, you'll see 3 different colors. Blue means you are within range, right? If you're yellow, that's just going to show your tolerance, and red means you're too hot, you got to deal with it, right? So it's great that you can see those levels, but we actually took it a little bit further, and now if you look down at your main, while you have automation up, if you look at your main, you can actually turn on your loudness history. And this will actually show you your integrated loudness history right here in the timeline. So not only can you find out if your levels are off, but you can now target those and deal with them. So we have so much more in here. We even have, one last thing, I'll never stop, by the way. So just so you know, I have 1 second. The last thing is I'm just going to show you we also have now our 3D capability. So we now can do our full 3D mixing and mastering, including our Atmos, and then we can bring up our panners. As you know, we have our 3D panners, which have been improved, and we even have our scopes so that we can work in a full 3D environment. So you can check out all that when you get out to the main floor. Thank you guys for your patience. I know I went long, so back to Grant.
No worries. Thanks, Mary. So if we can switch back to the slide. So the keyboard will be available in August for 995. A little bit early to show it, but we think we had to show it because it was really part of the edit page. We had to really show them together, but probably a little earlier than we would have liked to announce it. So the last thing I wanted to show quickly is the Pocket Camera has been doing very well for us. And one of the popular features is plugging in a flash drive externally. So people are plugging in phantom-powered mics, they're plugging in flash drives, and that's really hitting the battery pretty hard. Some of those flash drives consume a lot of power, and we have to provide a lot of power because we've got USB-C on the side. So we've come up with a battery adapter that lets us expend the battery. So all you need to do is the Pocket Camera was originally designed for this. There's a little switch there, and you can take the door off, and in fact you can put the door in the tray under here. The battery adapter has a tray that slides out, and underneath you can store it's got 2 of the Sony batteries, and it's also on the sides. You can slide the batteries out when it's on a tripod. So all you need to do is bolt that into the bottom, it slides in, then it screws on, and then once it's attached it becomes part of the camera, and if I turn the camera on now it's providing power to the camera, which will power up in just a sec. There it is there. So it all becomes part of a unit, and then when you need to change batteries you can slide it out. So you can bolt it onto the tripod. But it'll power the camera for hours because it's a huge amount of power. But that's it there. I didn't put that on the bottom. So that's all we have, and this will be available, if we can bring up the availability, this will be about August, I think. We don't think it'll make July. I think it'll be probably into August. That's a really nasty fly. So that's all we have this year. Again, I want to thank everyone for your support. We really appreciate everyone's support. If it wasn't for you guys, we couldn't do all the things we do. And it's been a lot of fun, and everyone's worked really hard. So I'll let you get off. The show's about to open, but thanks a lot, and I hope to talk to you on the booth. Yeah.